Okay, listen up. Over the past few days, there have been several large waterspouts spotted along the Gulf Coast. These things have been big, strong, and frequent. It is my theory that these waterspouts are conspiring together to suck up all of the water out of the Gulf of Mexico and dump it onto Texas. Well, maybe not exactly that, but to an extent, something like this is happening because the Gulf of Mexico is providing enough moisture that we're going to go from drought to deluge in portions of the south over the next week. The system that's responsible for this is growing at a rate that literally everyone will likely feel the impacts from it at some point. From the east coast all the way to the west coast, as we have yet another surge of monsoonal moisture we have to talk about. And we're starting to watch the tropics very closely as several areas of interest are quickly popping up, with no signs of slowing down in the near future. But first, flash flooding, severe weather, and downright gully washers are on the way to many of y'all in the US, so let's check that out right now. Here's a real nice weather map that's going to allow us to see into the future, pick out your location, and follow along. The time in Eastern's always going to be above my head. 8 p.m. today, we could be dealing with severe weather up here in Iowa. The Storm Prediction Center does have a slight risk today for maybe some hail, some wind, and a very small chance of a tornado or two. This system up here is going to aid in the overall barrage or deluge of big time storms that's getting ready to come through Texas, Oklahoma, into Arkansas and Louisiana and into the deep south. That's going to cause all of our problems with excessive rainfall. So watch as I push this into the future. By the time we get into Sunday, that's when we really start to see the heavy rain break out along the Red River Valley. Now, don't get me wrong, this is going to be much welcomed precipitation in Texas and Oklahoma. You guys are seeing a big drought, but a lot of this is going to fall so quickly that flash flooding is certainly going to be a problem. Heavy rain and intermittent strong thunderstorms are going to be possible here, and watch how this system doesn't move, man. You see how the areas of darker green are kind of compiling and sitting stationary over the same areas? Once again, this might be a good thing for some areas because it's going to give you enough rain to get out of that drought, or at least make a dent in the drought. But in some other areas, even if you're in a drought, you can flood, okay? So this is going to fill up creeks and riverbeds very fast. So let's look at precipitation totals over the next week or so. If we go out just a couple of days to Sunday, for example, you can see that we're starting to see a lot of very beneficial rainfall in Texas and in places like northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas. It's not that big of a problem right now, right? In fact, it's a good problem to have, but the rain doesn't stop. Once again, it's a flood of surging storms coming through, and it just keeps happening. It keeps piling on. It keeps going. It keeps going. All the way back on Sunday, August 28th, some areas may have picked up 20 inches of rain in northeastern Texas and southern Oklahoma. That is going to cause flooding. I don't care how dry it's been. Another thing this system is going to impact is everybody's temperatures, okay? Watch this, especially as we head into Monday. Look at how below average we're going to be down here in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, even Arizona and New Mexico. Down into Mexico, we are going to be downright chilly. In some places, almost 20 degrees below what we're supposed to be. And then it's like everything's flipped or something, because up here in Canada, we're steaming hot, son. Cold in Mexico, hot in Canada, buddy. That right there is 2022 for you. And this is how the pattern's going to settle over the next few days. In fact, it's going to get downright hot once again in the northeast thanks to this. All the way back on August 25th, it's still cold pretty much in Arkansas and Louisiana. At least that's how it's going to feel. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be cold. You're not going to need a fur coat or anything, but you are going to notice that it's going to be much different than what it has been. And for a lot of people, this is going to be very welcomed. So the south central and the southeastern U.S. is not the only area that's going to get a bunch of rainfall. We're also looking at well above normal rainfall rates in the Four Corners region and the desert southwest, thanks to another surge of monsoonal moisture. There is a moderate risk of excessive rainfall to occur over portions of south central and southeastern Arizona into southwest New Mexico over the next few days. These areas will likely see widespread flooding Friday into Saturday night. Notice this low pressure system that's aiding in the moisture that's coming into Texas is going to kind of float over the Four Corners region over the next few days and just dump a ton of moisture. Watch it explode. Watch it kind of sit there and just dump Pacific moisture in the same areas over and over again. This is an area that doesn't need the rain as much as Texas, so there will be some dicey situations showing up with those flash flood warnings as we go forward. If you live in a flood prone area down here, if you live anywhere near a wash, wash, or if you have to drive past one on your way to work or home or something, make sure you keep in mind that these things are going to be going crazy over the next couple of days. This could especially impact travel along the I-10 corridor. Now, a lot of people have been asking in the comments, well, because of the overactive monsoon season, are we seeing any difference with Lake Mead? I've been talking for a while about how the lake levels are dropping and this drought is terrible, so I do have a little bit of an update for you on Lake Mead. The extratropical moisture unfortunately won't reach far enough to benefit the drought-plagued region that's dealing with the water crisis. However, Lake Mead has seen water levels rise about 18 inches during this monsoon season, which is a good sign. But Lake Mead is all about storage, and it's based on the season. Winter snowpack and mountain snow melt remains the biggest factor in the amount of water that flows into Lake Mead. So unfortunately, all of this extra moisture that we're seeing down here isn't helping the situation with Lake Mead as much as what some people are thinking that it should. What we need to hope for is an overactive snowy season in the Sierras and then of course in the Rockies. But we're not there right now. In fact, it's hurricane season, buddy. And we're going to talk about that super in depth right here in a second. But first, we got to thank our awesome sponsor today, because if you ever want to track a hurricane with a professional radar app, you're going to want to hear about these guys. Radar Omega, the best weather app, no cap. Radar Omega is a professional radar app that meteorologists use, storm chasers use, I use, and you can use on your phone, iOS or Android. And with a subscription, you can actually use it on your PC. It's what I use during live streams. This is the most powerful storm tracking app. Radar Omega provides you with high-quality NEXRAD radar data to keep you alert on rapidly changing weather conditions. Not only can you look at radar, but you get your warnings, your severe weather outlooks, and also all kinds of other data through this app. My favorite thing is you can look at satellite data in 3D, and in fact, you can look at model data, radar data, and all that in 3D, and like, how cool is that? I was a big fan of them long before they sponsored me, and I just want people to have this in their toolbox because I believe it's a life-saving product. So what are you waiting for? Hit those links down in the description for iOS or Android to download Radar Omega today. You will not regret it, I can promise you that. Now, let's get back into the video. Okay, so we now have something to actually watch in the Gulf of Mexico, as the National Hurricane Center has a 40% chance of development with Invest 99L here. It's absolutely bubbling with convection this morning, meaning that intensification is likely as we head through the day tomorrow. So far, this storm has consistently been further east and therefore more over water than forecasted by the National Hurricane Center. So it's very likely that this thing steers up towards Texas if it continues to develop. And if it does form into a tropical storm, it's going to be Danielle. That's right, we're only on D, and it's August 19th. Let's recap everything that's happened this year so far. There's been 3 tropical systems in the Atlantic, all in June and July. Okay, so we had Tropical Storm Alex, that started on June 5th. We had Tropical Storm Bonnie on July 1st, and then we had a whisper of a Tropical Storm Colin on July 2nd through the 3rd, okay? And that's it. That's all that's happened in the Atlantic so far this year. But if we flip to the Pacific Ocean, things are quite different. There have been 10 tropical systems in the Eastern Pacific so far, including major Hurricane Bonnie that crossed over from the Atlantic from May into August. So we had Hurricanes Agatha and Blas from May 28th through June 20th. Then we had Tropical Storm Celia on June 16th. That led into major Hurricanes Bonnie and Darby from July 1st through July 16th. And by the way, Darby's been the strongest one this year with winds up to 140 miles per hour. Then we had Hurricanes Estelle and Frank from July 15th through August 2nd, Tropical Storm Georgette on July 27th, and then Hurricane Howard on August 7th. And then of course we had Tropical Storm Yvette on August 15th through the 16th. So the Eastern Pacific has been way more active than the Atlantic this year, and that's exactly what's not supposed to happen during a La Nina year. But forecast models are also starting to flip, now showing much less activity in the Pacific and much more activity in the Atlantic as we go forward. And that's why NOAA still believes we're going to have an above average hurricane season this year. NOAA forecasters have slightly decreased the likelihood of an above normal Atlantic hurricane season to 60%, but it's still forecasted that we're going to see up to 20 named storms, 10 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. So yeah, like we've been saying for a while now, things are lighting up in the Atlantic. Right now, we only have that one storm to really watch, but as we talked talked about in the last video, multiple storms are popping up on these model runs, but then immediately going away during the next one. Eventually, they're all going to agree on a finalized solution for one of these storms, and I really do think we're going to start seeing multiple hurricanes, possibly more than one at a time, that we're tracking here over the next several weeks. Stay tuned, be prepared. Once again, I'm not saying this stuff to scare you. The fact of the matter is, though, that they are coming, all right? And if you live on the coast, do everything you can to make sure you're not scared, but prepared. And of course, stay tuned here, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be covering these in depth as we go forward. Super huge shout out to all of our members over here. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I said in the last video that I was going to do a members only live stream. We've had to put that off. I promise it's coming though. I'm going to schedule it at some point. Otherwise though, please make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's the best place to keep up with me. A lot of times I get a little, crazy. My schedule's all over the place, but I'm always posting updates on those platforms. So if you want to keep up with me, that's the best place to do it. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh.